friends. Welcome back to the third and final rendition of this short series following the ascension and establishment of the LIV Golf series and the rowdy questions that come along with that. That phrase just used in this finale introduction, hello friends, is notoriously utilized by legendary golf broadcaster and sportscaster in general, Jim Nantz. Mr. Nantz is an avid golf fan, even going as far as building a par 3 in his backyard. He's beloved by almost all of the golf community and holds very hard stances on what he believes in this current situation. Nantz is fully entrenched on the side of the PGA players, even going as far as, while on national broadcast, airing sly insults at the opposing organization. First example of this happened on the PGA Championship last year, one of the 4 biggest tournaments of the year, when Dustin Johnson, who was a 2-time major champion and one of the biggest names that went to LIV, was taking his opening tee shot. Nantz slyly mentioned how you might not have seen it last week in Tulsa, but Dustin Johnson did win the playoff tournament against Brandon Grace and Cameron Smith. I was referring to the faulty LIV broadcast, which failed to show all their viewers the supposedly exciting ending of their latest tournament. Later, Nantz also remarked at 5-time major champion Brooks Koepka, who also went to LIV while he was on the Masters, one of the 4 majors, when his ball kind of went awry on one hole. It was on the crosswalk. Jim mentioned, there it is, in front of the ball. There the ball is, right on the CW. This was a sly but obvious remark referring to the channel, the CW, which airs all the American-based LIV tournaments now. And he was, of course, doing it because it was Brooks' ball. Jim's only one of many highly influential people in the golf world who have taken staunch stances against. On top of these highly influential members of the media, many members of the Professional Golfers Association of America, which is separate from the PGA Tour, have definitely expressed their unhappiness with the situation. Today, we were lucky enough to be joined in an interview by my local club professional and award-winning member, Mr. Sean McElroy, who is now the director of golf as he moved to Arizona, sadly for me, but good for him. He has joined us for a short interview, giving some insights on how Sifford.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing well this morning. It's nice to talk to you.
Good to see you again. Very good. Very glad to have you on to provide some very insightful information today. We'll start pretty easy. Just what does golf mean to you in general?
What does golf mean to me? When I think golf and I think of other sports, what stands out for me with golf is it's so individualistic, right? And you're off on your own so much. I mean, you could be playing with 3 other people in a foursome, but so much on your own. I could be off in the woods looking for my golf ball, and I could magically find it if I wanted to, and I could magically get a 5 on a hole where I hit 7 shots. But that's not rewarding. Like, golf is most rewarding when it's an honest game, when it's a game that you're just embracing the situation and the camaraderie with the people you're playing with. And that only happens when you're being honest. So I think golf is a game of honesty. That's the main thing that comes to my head when I think golf.
It's a pretty special game. That's exactly what I was getting at in the start of this docu-series. So now we'll get into some more structured questions here. You've been around golf your whole life. You've seen many different tiers of it. You've competed. You've seen the guys working it. You've seen it all. How do you understand this LIV versus PGA situation more than the average viewer, and what gives you more insight on that?
Yeah, so not only have I played the game, like you said, but I've also, instructed and tried to help people get into the game. And I think especially with LIV's go-ahead message of grow the game, I don't know if that's necessarily true based on my experience with trying to grow the game with people who are just getting into it. I don't think being associated with a country that has a history of human rights violations and trying to force certain answers down people's throats is how you would grow the game. I think that the best way to grow the game is, through individual people making a difference, not these big corporate messages. And that's exactly what this is. It's a corporate message just on behalf of a huge $1 trillion, $1 billion not company, but country. And so I think it's the exact opposite of how golf has grown in the past. And also in terms of the game itself, when I experienced competition in golf, I think the current competition in the LIV format is as far as it could be from the purest form.
Yeah.
Not only are players not playing the standard amount of holes in a golf tournament, there's no cuts, so there's no incentive to play as hard, as there's a minimum reward for every single player.
Yep.
But additionally, your score, it's not all entirely based on how you do as an individual. It's based on the team, and then there's conflicts of interest within that of how well you do for yourself versus your team. It's not how the game has been in the past, and I don't think it's a positive change.
Yes, of course. Do you think, going off that on the PGA side, do you think the executives of the PGA handle the situation at the beginning and of recently? I know there's been some recent changes, obviously. You think they've been heavily criticized for their decisions. How do you think their doings were this whole process?
Yeah, I don't know if they could have handled it more poorly throughout the entire process. They waited for a long time. They knew this was a possible thing that could come up. There were other team leagues like LIV's format that tried to arise over the past decade that the PGA Tour neglected. And those were associated with, domestic private equity firms and ideas like that, and they shrugged it off because the PGA was bigger, right? And then this huge new player comes into the game with PIF, and the PGA tries to play the morality card last year. The commissioner, Jay Monahan, brings up the stories of 9/11 families on broadcasts, and they trot out certain players and encourage them to say certain things, and then a year later they go behind their backs and talk with PIF and try to come to an agreement with them. And I don't know how you could say you let bygones be bygones when you're talking about how this is a country that has a history of human rights violations and connections to some terrible things. I don't know how the next year you could flip like that.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's not a demonstration of being a honest and straightforward company on the PGA's front, and that's somewhat of the attitude that players have as well. Like John Rahm, for example, last year, he's the newest addition to LIV. He's one of the most prolific players in the game. Last year, he couldn't be more adamant about being anti-LIV in terms of the format for golf. And additionally, he mentioned issues with the human rights concerns. And then
he even mentioned the money, too.
Last week,
he said, my life wouldn't change.
Money.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said, exactly. He said his life wouldn't change. The money would not impact his decision. And then a year later, they put enough money on the table that it did impact his decision, that he said what they wanted him to say in the scheduled press conferences, and now he's yesterday I saw a report that he's not allowed to speak until February. Like he's on a tight schedule in terms of when he's allowed to talk. So it's all, these players are just they're given times when they're allowed to talk, and when they're allowed to talk, they're given ideas on what they're supposed to say. It's all just a big ploy to boost the name of Saudi Arabia and to normalize their involvement in American conversations and in American business. And the players and the PGA Tour have not shown much resistance to being hypocritical in those situations.
Yeah, it was a great answer. And you kind of already hinted at it, but do you think this division and disruption of the game it's so hurtful to so many members of the community? Do you think it even affects people not even on the professional level? Do you think it just hurts the entire game of golf in general?
Yeah, I think it taints the name
of
the game, right? I mean, when so many of these leagues are associated with, doing so much charity and making a positive impact, right? The PGA Tour is trying to do that. They donate hundreds of millions every year to charities. They work with companies like First Tee to help, keep kids active every year, etc. So they were trying to have that positive impact on the game. But now when people hear the game of golf, they think oh, that's the sport that Saudi Arabia is going to run.
Yeah.
That's the sport that's connected to, normalizing this sort of country, this sort of behavior in the world. And so it just, when people hear the game, even not even just LIV, they just hear golf, they can start to think of that more so than a game, getting back to the honesty bit, or getting back to the just learning how to do something yourself as an individual. They don't think about that as much.
Yep.
It's not about the actual game of golf. It turns into this political issue that it never was in the past.
Yeah, it's tough. All right, that's all the questions I had. Do you have any final comments you want to add at all? Or you summed it up already?
I think I've summed up my ideas already. It's a disappointing thing to see for the game. And unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it's going to improve much in the near future, at least.
In short, golf is a sport, more than a sport, for millions of people around the world. For me, it's a thoroughly enjoyable hobby that is an everlasting test of mental and physical skill that will last me a lifetime. For others, like the professionals involved in this situation we've discussed for almost 20 minutes now, and it's their life's work. It's how they support their families. It's what they do day in and day out. Then, for an extremely select few, is a way of gaining wealth, influence, and power. These are the individuals who are clearly negatively impacting the lighthearted game, morals seemingly aside. Thank you so much for watching. That's all I've got for you today. I hope you enjoyed just a little bit. Maybe you found it just a little informative. Hopefully it added a little educational value to your day. And I just hope you have a great Christmas, great Merry Christmas, and find your way out to a course sometime. Able to get the clubs out, enjoy your day, get into nature, hit some shots with some buddies, who knows, and just give yourself some time to not think about the money and power that influence so much of the world, and have fun out there. Merry Christmas.